Poor girl pays bus fare for a stranger, not knowing he is millionaire. What he did surprised everyone. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. It all started on a cold, windy day at the bus stop, where Emily found herself struggling with her last few dollars. It was a busy morning in the city, the streets bustling with people rushing to their daily routines. The wind had a bite to it, and the gray sky threatened rain. Emily stood, clutching her worn leather purse, staring at the bus schedule, knowing she didn't have enough to get to her job interview. She'd been waiting for this day for so long, hoping that the job would be her ticket out of the mess she was in. Just then, a man approached the bus stop. He was tall, dressed in a worn jacket that seemed out of place in the city, his hair unkempt. His eyes looked tired, and there was a certain sadness about him. Emily noticed him because he looked like he had been through a lot. She watched him for a moment, her heart aching for him. He looked like someone who had lost everything. She didn't know why, but she felt compelled to help. The man hesitated for a moment before turning toward her. "Excuse me," he said, his voice low and a bit shaky. "I've been robbed. I just need $10 to get home. I promise I'll pay you back as soon as I can." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She knew she didn't have much herself, but the man's desperation pulled at her heart. She reached into her purse and pulled out the last $10 bill she had. It was all she had left for the day. She handed it to him without a second thought. "Here you go," she said, her voice soft. "I hope you get home safe." The man looked at her with a mixture of surprise and gratitude. "Thank you so much," he said, his voice breaking slightly. Emily smiled, feeling good about doing something kind, even though it was a small gesture. She watched as the man walked away, hoping he would be okay. As she stood there, waiting for her own bus, she couldn't help but think about how many people in the world were struggling just like him. She wished there was more she could do. But the bus arrived, and she climbed on, trying to shake off the strange feeling that lingered in her chest. She had no idea that this small act of kindness would change her life forever. Little did she know, the man she had helped was not who he appeared to be. He wasn't just another stranger struggling on the streets. He was about to do something that would surprise everyone, including her. Days passed after Emily's small act of kindness, and life seemed to go back to normal for her. The job interview she had been hoping for was nothing more than a distant memory now, as she continued to scrape by, struggling to keep up with bills and rent. Yet, something about that brief encounter with the stranger at the bus stop kept playing on her mind. She found herself wondering about him, hoping he had made it home safely. Little did she know, that man was no ordinary stranger. He was David Carter, the CEO of a tech company, and he had a plan. A few days later, Emily was volunteering at a local soup kitchen when she saw him again. This time, he was standing across the room, looking well-dressed and out of place. His presence seemed almost surreal to her. She couldn't believe her eyes. It was the same man, the one she had helped with her last $10. He walked into the room with an air of authority, surveying the crowd before his gaze landed on her. Emily's heart skipped a beat as their eyes met. She couldn't believe he was here. What was he doing at a place like this? He approached her, his smile genuine, though there was a hint of curiosity in his eyes. "I didn't expect to see you here," he said, his voice low but friendly. Emily tried to mask her surprise, offering him a nervous smile. "I volunteer here sometimes," she replied, unsure of what else to say. I recognized you from the bus stop," he said, his tone light. "Thank you again for your kindness." Emily felt her cheeks flush. "It was nothing," she muttered, feeling a little embarrassed. "It was something," he insisted. "Most people wouldn't have done that. You didn't even know me." Emily shrugged, trying to downplay the situation. She hadn't done it for any recognition. It just felt right. David studied her for a moment before speaking again. "I know this might sound strange, but I've been thinking a lot about that day. You helped me when you didn't have to, and that kind of kindness is rare." He paused, as if searching for the right words. "I want to help you." Emily was taken aback. "Help me? How?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. David smiled warmly, his gaze softening. "I run a foundation, and we're looking for someone like you. Someone who understands what it's like to struggle, but still has the heart to give. I can offer you a job, a place to stay, and help you get back on your feet. You deserve better than what life has handed you. Emily blinked, stunned by his words. She hadn't expected anything like this. Her mind raced, unsure of whether she should believe him or not. Was this some sort of charity, or was he just trying to make her feel better? I don't know if I deserve all that, she said quietly, her voice filled with doubt. You do, David said firmly, and I'll make sure you get the opportunity to prove it. He handed her his business card and smiled. Take your time, but don't wait too long. I'd love to have you on board. Emily stood there, staring at the card in her hand. She didn't know what to think, but one thing was certain. David Carter was not just a random stranger. There was something about him that made her feel like she had been given a second chance. What would she do with it? Emily stood there, holding the business card David had given her, her fingers trembling slightly. The offer he had made was too good to be true, and yet, something about it felt genuine. She hadn't expected anything like this. Just a few days ago, she had been struggling to make ends meet, unsure of where her next meal was coming from, and now, here she was, being offered a chance to change her life. The doubt in her mind was strong, but the glimmer of hope David had given her felt even stronger. She spent the rest of the day in a daze, unsure of what to do next. She didn't have much, but this was the opportunity of a lifetime. That evening, after a long shift at the soup kitchen, Emily sat down at her small kitchen table, staring at the business card under the dim light of a lamp. The card was simple, with David's name, the name of his company, and a phone number. She ran her fingers over the smooth surface, wondering if she was really ready to take this step. She had always been independent, relying on herself to get by. But could she trust David? Could she trust that he truly wanted to help her? Or was this just another way for him to make himself feel better? The next morning, Emily couldn't shake the thought of David's offer. She decided to call the number on the card. Her heart raced as the phone rang, each second stretching longer than the last. Finally, David's voice came through the receiver. Hello? He said, sounding as calm and reassuring as ever. David, it's Emily, she said, her voice shaky. I've been thinking about your offer. I don't know if I deserve all that you're offering, but I want to hear more about it. There was a pause on the other end, and then David spoke, his voice warm. Emily, you absolutely deserve it. I know it's a big decision, and I want you to take your time, but I'm here if you want to talk. Come by the office today, and I'll explain everything. There's no rush. I just want to give you a chance. His words reassured her, but the fear of the unknown still lingered. Still, she made the decision. Okay, she said, taking a deep breath. I'll come by. That afternoon, Emily walked into the sleek, modern office building where David worked. The lobby was bright and welcoming, with tall windows that looked out over the city. She felt out of place, but she pushed the feeling aside. As she stepped onto the elevator, her stomach fluttered. The doors closed, and she was on her way up. When she reached the top floor, David was waiting for her. He greeted her with a warm smile and a firm handshake. I'm glad you came, he said, leading her into his office. It was spacious, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a stunning view of the city. The space was filled with sleek furniture, and the walls were adorned with art. David motioned for her to sit across from him. I know this is a lot to take in, he said, sitting down as well. But I believe in you, Emily. I believe you can do great things, and I want to help you get there. This is a chance to change your life. Emily looked around the office, her mind racing. Could she really do this? Could she take the leap and trust him? As she looked back at David, something in his eyes told her that he was sincere. He wasn't just offering her a job. He was offering her a chance to believe in herself again. Thank you, she said, her voice soft but steady. I'll do my best. Emily spent the next few days in a whirlwind of emotions. She had accepted David's offer, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was stepping into a world that was far beyond her reach. Every time she looked at her reflection, she saw the same tired, struggling woman who had been barely holding things together. She wasn't sure if she was ready for the changes that lay ahead. But the moment she stepped into David's office for her first day, she knew there was no turning back. David was waiting for her with a warm smile, dressed impeccably as always. Welcome aboard, Emily, he said as she entered, his voice calm but full of encouragement. He handed her a folder with the details of her role at the foundation. I want you to know that this is just the beginning. You'll learn a lot. but I believe you have everything it takes to make a real impact." Emily felt a mixture of nerves and excitement as she took the folder. She hadn't realized just how much she was being given until that moment. Her new role involved managing outreach programs for the foundation, helping to bring awareness to the causes they supported. She would be working alongside a small team of passionate individuals who, like her, were committed to making a difference. But as she sat at her new desk, surrounded by a sleek office, she couldn't help but feel like an imposter. She had no experience in the nonprofit world, and the pressure to succeed weighed heavily on her. Despite the doubts, Emily dove into her work. She spent hours researching, reaching out to other organizations, and learning everything she could about the field. She asked questions, sought guidance from her colleagues, and slowly began to feel more comfortable in her new role. David's encouragement kept her going. He checked in on her progress regularly, offering support and feedback. His confidence in her was unwavering, and that gave her the strength to push forward. But the real turning point came during her first major project. David had asked her to spearhead an event to raise awareness for a cause that was close to his heart, helping homeless families. Emily worked tirelessly on the event, coordinating logistics, reaching out to potential donors, and creating promotional materials. She was exhausted, but she was also proud of what she was accomplishing. The night of the event, everything seemed to fall into place. The room was filled with influential people from the community, all eager to support the cause. As Emily stood at the front, overseeing the final details, David approached her with a smile. "You did it," he said, his voice filled with admiration. Emily beamed, feeling a sense of pride she had never experienced before. "Thank you for believing in me," she said softly. David looked at her, his expression serious but kind. "I didn't just believe in you, Emily. I knew you could do this from the moment I met you. You're capable of so much more than you realize." That moment, as she stood there, watching the event unfold, was a defining one for Emily. She had found her place in a world she once thought was out of reach. And more importantly, she had rediscovered her own sense of worth. She realized that the path she had taken, no matter how uncertain it seemed, was the one that had brought her to a future full of possibilities. The months passed, and Emily's life began to change in ways she had never imagined. Her role at the foundation grew more challenging, and with each new task, she felt herself becoming stronger, more capable. She had come to realize that the hard work and dedication she had poured into her role were paying off. Not only was she helping those in need, but she was also growing into a person she had always hoped to become, someone who could make a real difference in the world. David's belief in her had proven to be the catalyst she needed. He had offered her a chance, not just to prove herself professionally, but to rebuild her life. One afternoon, after a long meeting at the office, David called her into his office. She walked in, unsure of what to expect, but as always, his calm presence immediately put her at ease. "Emily," he began, his tone serious, yet warm. "I've been watching your progress, and I have to say, I'm very impressed. You've exceeded my expectations in ways I didn't think possible." Emily smiled, feeling a sense of pride swell in her chest. "Thank you, David. I've learned a lot, and I've been doing my best." David nodded, but there was a glint of something deeper in his eyes. "I know you've been working hard, and I think it's time for you to take the next step," he said. "I want to offer you a permanent position with the foundation. You've earned it." Emily's heart skipped a beat. This was the moment she had been waiting for. The validation she had been longing for, the recognition that she was finally making it. She had come so far, and now, everything was falling into place. "I don't know what to say," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you so much. I never thought I would be here." David smiled, leaning back in his chair. "You're welcome, Emily. You've earned this. And there's one more thing." He paused for a moment, studying her closely. "I've been thinking about your future, and I want to be more than just a mentor. I want to be someone you can count on, both professionally and personally. I don't want you to ever feel alone again." His words hit Emily harder than she expected. She had spent so much of her life isolated, believing that she had to do everything on her own. But hearing David's words made her realize that she didn't have to carry the weight of the world by herself anymore. She had a support system now, and it wasn't just about the job. It was about the people, who genuinely cared. "Thank you," Emily said softly, her voice full of gratitude. "That means more to me than you'll ever know." As the days went by, Emily took on her new role with renewed determination. She worked tirelessly, managing bigger projects, expanding the foundation's reach, and making a real impact in the community. But it wasn't just her professional life that was changing. Emily found herself growing closer to David in a way she hadn't anticipated. There was an undeniable connection between them, one that was deeper than mentor and mentee. She started to see David not just as the man who had given her a chance, but as someone she admired and respected. And as time went on, that respect began to grow into something more. It was a slow realization, one that took her by surprise. But in the quiet moments, when they worked together late into the evening, or when he checked in on her progress, Emily began to see him differently. David had shown her a kindness she had never experienced before, and she felt a warmth in her chest every time they spoke. It wasn't just about the job anymore. It was about a connection that neither of them had expected but both desperately needed. Emily knew she was on the brink of something big, not just in her career, but in her heart as well. As weeks went by, Emily found herself growing into the role that David had offered her, not just professionally, but emotionally as well. Her connection to him was undeniable, and she could no longer ignore the bond that had formed between them. They spent countless hours working side by side, making decisions for the foundation and attending meetings. David's support and unwavering belief in her gave her the strength she needed to push past the self-doubt that had always held her back. The more time they spent together, the more Emily started to realize that she was no longer just his mentee. She was beginning to see David in a way she never had before. She admired his intelligence, his kindness, and the way he cared for those around him. And the more she admired him, the more she found herself thinking about him, even outside of work. Late one evening, after a long day at the office, Emily was reviewing some reports when David stopped by her desk. "Emily," he said, his voice softer than usual, "I've been meaning to talk to you about something." She looked up, surprised. David rarely initiated personal conversations outside of work. "What's on your mind?" she asked, trying to hide the nervousness in her voice. He hesitated for a moment, glancing at the floor before meeting her gaze. "I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but I've been feeling something I can't ignore." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She felt the same way, but she wasn't sure how to respond. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. David took a step closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "I care about you, Emily. More than I should, probably," he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "And I can't help but feel that there's something between us, something real. I just needed to say it." Emily's breath caught in her throat. She had been feeling it too, but she hadn't dared to acknowledge it. Now that David had said it out loud, the weight of the words seemed to hang in the air between them. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her racing heart. "David, I don't know what to say," she began, her voice trembling. "I didn't expect this. I never thought that this would happen." He smiled gently, his eyes filled with understanding. "I didn't expect it either," he said softly. "But I think we both deserve to be happy. And I think we could be good for each other." Emily stood up slowly, her mind spinning. She had spent so much time building her life, trying to make it on her own, and now here she was, faced with the possibility of something more. She had never allowed herself to open up to someone like this. But something about David made her feel safe, cared for, and valued. "I don't want to rush into anything," she said, taking a step closer to him. "But I think we should explore this together." David's smile widened, and he reached out to gently take her hand. "I'm willing to take that step, Emily, if you are." In that moment, all the walls Emily had built around her heart seemed to fall away. She realized that she had finally found someone who truly understood her, someone who saw her for who she was, flaws and all. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like she wasn't alone. They stood there in the quiet of the office, holding hands, both of them unsure of what the future held, but ready to face it together. It was the beginning of something new, something neither of them had expected, but something they both knew was worth exploring. As the days passed, the bond between Emily and David grew stronger. They were no longer just mentor and mentee. They were becoming something more. They shared quiet moments together, talking about everything and nothing. It felt natural, easy, and, for Emily, it was a feeling she had never experienced before. But even as their relationship blossomed, doubts began to creep into her mind. She had been in a tough place for so long. The world she now inhabited was so different from the one she had known, and the life she had built seemed fragile, like it could slip through her fingers at any moment. One evening, as they sat together after a long day of work, Emily found herself hesitating. She hadn't wanted to admit it, but the fear of losing everything was growing inside her. "David," she began, her voice tentative, "I've been thinking a lot about us." He looked at her, his expression calm and understanding. "What's on your mind?" Emily took a deep breath. She had never been one to open up about her feelings easily, but this was different. She trusted him. "I'm scared," she said quietly. "I've never had something like this. I've always had to rely on myself. I don't know how to handle all of this. You, the foundation, the future." David's eyes softened, and he reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "Emily, I understand your fears," he said, his voice soothing. "But you don't have to face them alone anymore. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." His words were a balm to her anxious heart, but she still couldn't shake the worry that had settled in her chest. "But what if I mess up?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "What if I fail?" David squeezed her hand, his touch firm and reassuring. "You're not going to fail. You've already proven more than enough. And even if things don't go as planned, we'll handle it together. No one expects perfection, Emily. We grow, we learn, and we support each other through the rough patches." Emily looked into his eyes, feeling the weight of his words sink in. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of peace. She didn't have to carry the weight of her fears alone. She had someone who believed in her, someone who would stand by her side no matter what. "Thank you, David," she said softly, "for everything." The next few weeks brought new challenges and new opportunities. Emily threw herself into her work at the foundation, leading projects and working alongside David to make a real impact. Slowly, she began to see herself differently. She was no longer the woman who had struggled alone, fighting just to survive. She was capable, she was strong, and she was part of something bigger than herself. As their professional relationship deepened, so did their personal one. Emily couldn't ignore the feelings she had for David any longer. It wasn't just about the work they did together. It was about how he made her feel. Safe, supported, and cared for in ways she had never imagined possible. One evening, as they walked together after a long day, Emily finally found the courage to say what had been on her mind for so long. "David, I need to tell you something," she said, her voice low but steady. "I think I'm falling for you." David stopped walking, turning to face her. There was a moment of silence, but his expression was soft, his eyes filled with warmth. "I've been feeling the same way," he said quietly, "and I think it's time we stop pretending that this isn't something real." Emily felt a weight lift off her shoulders. It wasn't just a feeling of relief, it was a feeling of possibility. She had finally found someone who saw her, truly saw her, and loved her for who she was. And as they stood there, in the soft evening light, Emily knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. As the weeks turned into months, Emily and David's relationship continued to deepen, and so did their professional bond. Emily felt like a different person than the one who had walked into that office all those months ago, unsure of herself and her future. She was growing not only in her career, but also in her understanding of what it meant to be truly loved and supported. Their connection was undeniable, and it was clear to both of them that what had begun as a mentorship had blossomed into something far more meaningful. One evening, after a long day of meetings and planning for a new initiative, David suggested they take a walk in the nearby park. The crisp evening air felt refreshing, and as they strolled through the quiet paths lined with trees, Emily felt a sense of peace settle over her. David's hand brushed against hers, and without thinking, she took his hand, interlacing their fingers. It was the simplest of gestures, yet it meant everything to her. They had come so far, together. "I've been thinking about everything we've built, Emily," David said, his voice soft, breaking the comfortable silence. "The foundation, the work we're doing, it's all amazing. But more than that, I've been thinking about us. And I want you to know that this, what we have, is real to me. It's more than just professional." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She had felt it, too, but hearing him say it out loud made it feel even more real. "It's real to me, too," she replied, squeezing his hand gently. "I don't think I've ever felt like this before. About my work, about you, about everything." David stopped walking and turned to face her, his eyes intense but filled with warmth. I know we've been cautious, and I respect that, he said. But I want to ask you something. Emily's breath caught in her throat. She had no idea what he was about to say, but she was ready to listen. What is it? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. David took a deep breath, as if gathering his thoughts, before he spoke again. I know we've come a long way together, and I know how much we both value the work we're doing. But Emily, I don't want to just work with you. I want to build a future with you. I'm asking you, not just as your partner in this foundation, but as someone who loves you. Will you marry me? Emily stood there in shock, the words hanging in the air between them. Her mind raced, and her heart raced even faster. She hadn't expected this, not now, not so soon, but in the depths of her heart, she knew. She knew that. This was the next step in their journey together. The future she had once thought was out of her reach now seemed within her grasp. Slowly, a smile spread across her face as tears welled up in her eyes. Yes, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Yes, I will. David's face lit up with a joy that mirrored her own. He pulled her into his arms, holding her close as the world around them seemed to disappear. In that moment, nothing else mattered. They had found each other against all odds, and now, they were ready to build a life together. As they stood there in the park, the night sky stretching above them, Emily realized that this was the start of a new chapter. She had found love, she had found her purpose, and she had found someone who truly believed in her, someone who was willing to walk beside her every step of the way. This was the beginning of a new life, one that was filled with promise, love, and endless possibilities. The months following their engagement were a whirlwind of excitement, love, and the promise of a bright future. Emily and David had not only built a strong partnership in their professional lives, but now they were creating something even more beautiful together, an unbreakable bond in their personal lives. Their wedding was a simple yet elegant affair, held in a small, intimate venue surrounded by close friends and family. Emily walked down the aisle in a modest yet stunning dress, her heart filled with joy and anticipation. As she reached the altar, David stood there, waiting for her with a smile that made her heart skip a beat. The moment they exchanged vows was everything she had ever dreamed of and more. It wasn't about the fancy decorations or the grand gestures. It was about the connection they shared, the love that had brought them here, and the promise to stand by each other through whatever life would bring. The ceremony was short but meaningful, with heartfelt words exchanged, and as they sealed their vows with a kiss, Emily knew that this was the beginning of a life that was richer than anything she could have ever imagined. Their honeymoon was spent in a quiet cottage by the beach, far from the hustle and bustle of their everyday lives. They spent their days walking along the shore, enjoying the simple pleasure of each other's company, and dreaming of the future they would build together. As they sat together on the porch, watching the sunset over the ocean, Emily couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. She had gone from struggling to make ends meet, to working at a foundation that made a real difference, to now standing beside a man who loved and supported her in every way. Her life had transformed in ways she had never thought possible. But more than that, she had found a sense of belonging. She had found a place where she truly belonged, not just professionally, but personally. David had been the anchor she needed in her life. He had shown her that love wasn't something to be feared, but something to be embraced. He had given her the courage to step into a future she once thought was out of reach. As they made plans for the future, they talked about starting a family, continuing their work at the foundation, and exploring new ventures together. Emily no longer felt the weight of self-doubt holding her back. She was ready for whatever came next. The world was full of possibilities, and she knew that with David by her side, they could conquer anything. A few years later, their foundation had grown exponentially, and their work had touched the lives of countless people. Emily had found her true calling in helping others, and David had become not only her partner in life, but also her closest confidant. Together, they had created something lasting, something bigger than themselves. One evening, as they sat on their balcony overlooking the city, David turned to her with a smile. "I'm so proud of everything we've built," he said, his voice filled with contentment. "But what I'm most proud of is the life we've created together." Emily smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. "Me too," she said softly. This is the life I always dreamed of, and it's all because of you." In that moment, surrounded by the life they had built, Emily realized that everything she had gone through, every struggle, and every moment of doubt, had led her here. She had found love, success, and happiness, but most importantly, she had found herself. And with David by her side, she knew that the journey was just beginning. They had built a life together, and it was more than they could have ever imagined. The future was bright, and they were ready to face it together, hand in hand. Discover an inspiring journey of love, self-discovery, and unexpected opportunities in this heartwarming millionaire story. Emily, a young woman struggling to make ends meet, finds herself helping a stranger with her last few dollars. Little did she know, this small act of kindness would change her life forever. As the man she helped turns out to be a millionaire, their paths cross again in the most surprising way. This story unfolds through moments of doubt, growth, and love, showcasing how a simple gesture can lead to life-changing consequences. As their relationship develops, the story transforms from one of mentorship into a profound love story. From a chance encounter to a life of purpose, Emily learns that the future holds more than she ever dreamed. As she steps into a new life, she discovers not only love, but also a sense of belonging and fulfillment in a way that only true millionaire stories can reveal. With the support of her millionaire partner, Emily overcomes her fears and embraces the possibilities of a brighter future. Their journey together is a testament to how sometimes the most unexpected paths lead to the greatest rewards. Join them on a heartfelt adventure where love, success, and millionaire stories intertwine in a tale of transformation. As their love story continues to unfold, Emily finds herself thriving in both her personal and professional life, all thanks to the millionaire who believed in her from the very beginning. This is one of those incredible millionaire stories that proves true love and support can lead to a life beyond imagination.